Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. Firstly, let me apologise for those that you logged in earlier. We had a little bit of a technical malfunction, but due to a reboot, we are good to go. I'd love to share with you today some tutorials, and we will go through as a continuation, because this is the second in a three-part series. I'd love to go through with you the paid version of Zoom. Now, as with yesterday and as with all of our sessions, please make sure you're in an area that's quiet as you can. Check your background, and if you're at home, and if possible, check that you've turned off as many Wi-Fi using devices as possible, just for the smooth experience. Check you're all set up, that you've got your camera and your microphone on, and we'll be good to go. We do like to make these sessions as interactive as possible, so being able to see you makes a huge difference. You're all going to be muted for the moment, just to make sure that we've got some really clean audio. But feel free to, if you've got a question, either hit the space bar, which will unmute you, or unmute yourself with the button in the bottom left-hand corner if you're using the laptop version. So Zoom, the paid version. Now, in the previous session, Zoom tutorial 1, we talked all about the free version and the functionality of that. So I'd love to go through the paid version with you. Ultimately, this is just a step up. So yesterday we talked about the free version being unlimited when it's just one-to-one, so you and I speaking. If it's one to more than one, so we want to run a group or even a team session, you're limited to 40 minutes, which can be a little bit restrictive. So going to the paid version, which at the moment, beginning of 2020, is $11.99 a month. You are unlimited and you can use it for as long as you like, with up to 100 people. Now, I had a few questions yesterday about what's the difference between the paid version and the webinar function. Now, to use a webinar function, it will cost you an additional, at the moment, $32.99. And that's really if you want to be broadcasting. Now, by that I mean you want to impart lots of information to as many people as possible with not really that much interaction. So it's really good if you're launching a product, if you're introducing something, or you're just sharing some information for the first time. If you're using Zoom to really build connections and build community and start conversations, I recommend you stick with the Zoom meetings, because you have got that additional functionality. You have got those interaction buttons, and I can see some thumbs up lighting up. And it just means you can start conversations and continue chats with people. So yes, the webinar version will cost you extra, and it's really to consider whether you're going to need it. If you think you're going to need a Zoom meeting with more than 100 people, one, make sure you have got backup. You will definitely need help to manage a meeting with more than 100 people. But two, give Zoom a call and mention to them what you're looking at doing, and they'll talk you through the best steps. You might just get a bolt-on, so you might not need to upgrade your entire package. You might not need additional hosts, which is the upgraded package again. You just might need more functionality around the numbers of people that you can invite. So they'll be able to do that for you. Secondly, I want you to think, we're going to go through today is some background admin that you can do in the settings section of Zoom, that's really going to help you have a smooth running program. That your session is going to run smoothly from start to finish, and take out a little bit of the guesswork and you trying to remember everything that you need to do for the session, as well as deliver your products. So I'll show you some of those. But we'll quickly go through whiteboards, because I had a few requests yesterday, that as well as the screen share, that you felt that whiteboards was really useful. And we'll go through some advanced group chat and admin, and how you control your session with more than 5 people, which can be a bit complicated, but with some really robust measures in place, make sure that everybody gets the benefit. Okay, let's have a look at the background admin that you can set into motion. So you should be able to see my Zoom screen. So this is in the dashboard, and you click on your own icon and it brings up your personal profile, which, as mentioned yesterday, change your picture so that if for whatever reason your camera drops out, people still know which is you. You want to head to the settings function here, and this is where we're going to have a look at some of the functionality here. This is almost like your master panel. Whatever you set up in the settings section, that's quite difficult to say, will be applicable to all of your meetings. So by getting it right here means that you don't have to set it up for every single meeting, and you don't have to try and remember lots of things in meeting. So from the top then, I like to have my video on straight away, and I like to have my participants' videos on. It gets more interaction, builds more of a connection, and I like to see your little faces. It definitely helps me in terms of energy. I'm happy for people to dial in via telephone and computer audio. Some people haven't got the camera function, and that's absolutely fine. I still want them to be able to hear what's going on. Now, I prefer not to have all my delegates joining the room before me. That just gives me a little bit of time to get myself settled, do a video and sound check before people arrive. If you're just hosting a meeting with a small group of people and you're happy for them to chat when you're not in the room, by all means, allow participants to join. We'll skip this section for now, and we'll come back to that tomorrow. I had a lot of questions yesterday around whether we should be using passwords when scheduling meetings. Now, of late, there has been a spike in the number of meetings that are being hacked. I would say if you're having a team meeting and it's just you guys and you would notice if someone jumps online, you don't need to worry about setting a password. If you're doing anything that involves sensitive materials, security and clearance, or anything involving children, like your kids are having a Zoom chat with their classmates, I really recommend you setting up a password. This just means that when you send the invite out, they get the invite, and they also get a password that they need to enter in order to be able to access the room. It just gives you that extra level of security and security clearance and safety. I'll leave that up to you whether you want to generate that. And all of these you just toggle on and off, by the way, by pressing the button, and you'll get a little update to say that that's been accepted. Let's go down to here. So one bit of admin that will save you a lot of aching is to turn on the section that says mute participants on entry. So I've got that selected, which means as soon as somebody joins my meeting room, they're automatically muted, which saves me from having to go in and finding them and then muting them. Saves you a lot of clicking around and trying to find where that source of noise is coming from on your audio. Let's scroll down a little bit further. We like to have the chat function enabled. It enables people to ask questions. It enables you to drop links out to everybody. You can even share files in the chat section. I would recommend, if you're using this for professional purposes, that you click this button. I prefer not to have my delegates be able to save the chat. I'll send out the chat as is applicable, but it means that you as the host have got a little bit more control over what the participants get afterwards. So I'll always share the chat with the questions and answers and all the links that we talked about, but I'd rather share that from me personally rather than having participants save that themselves. I'd also allow private chat. So if somebody's having a bit of a problem and I haven't seen it because I'm delivering a particular piece, it might well be that one of the participants can help and they can have one-to-one chat with each other. I'm perfectly okay with that. And you can switch that on and off. I would recommend you switch on auto-saving of chats. This means, you can't have the two of them in together, but this means that you don't have to remember to save the chat at the end of the session. It automatically saves. So as soon as the Zoom recording finishes, the chat also saves into the same file and folder, which is really helpful. I prefer not to have that bing bong noise when somebody comes into the room or leaves, but it's a personal preference. And I like to have people that can transfer files in and out. Again, personal preference. It's always good to have the option of adding a co-host. If you can get help for your Zoom meetings, this gives your co-host some additional functionality that can help you with muting and unmuting and dropping things into the chat box as well. Polling we'll cover tomorrow in tomorrow's sessions. That will be Zoom tutorial session 3, because it's more of the advanced functionality. What other things I think are important? Only I can share things on a share screen. Obviously that's applicable to this particular scenario. If you're in a team meeting though, or you use Zoom for team meetings or client meetings, you might want to select all participants to have everybody be able to share and comment and reshare as applicable. We definitely want to have annotation and whiteboard selected. These are really important as I activate Whiteboard and I have it auto-saving so that we don't lose all that goodness. I also want you to be able to get involved and annotate what I am sharing. Equally, I can allow annotation to slides. If I'm sharing a slide and I can ask a question, you can all click the Annotate button, which is found under View Options. You can annotate my slides if I ask you a question, which could be, on this picture, rate how you're feeling right now. And you can actually drop a button or write your name, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. This is a really cool feature, Nonverbal Feedback. I like to have that on. This is where you get the thumbs up, the clapping, the request for a cup of tea, the request for a break. I like to have that because it really promotes interactivity. If you're just using this for team meetings or client meetings, it might not be relevant for you and it might just be extra noise on the screen. So feel free to turn it on and off and start yourself a couple of test sessions so you can see what that looks like. Breakout rooms we will cover tomorrow in the advanced session 3. And I think we shall leave this there, other than to say the waiting room is a really useful piece. If you're going to use this as a webinar session that you invite people into, having people be able to join and then join a waiting room is great. It means you can let everybody in all at the same time when you're ready for them. Good practice is to log on 5 to 10 minutes before your session. Just test your audio and sound and then invite everybody in all at the same time when you are ready, when you've got your perhaps first slide shared. And the cool little bit at the bottom here, you can actually upload your logo and it will automatically put in the title of your meeting, but your logo goes in there, which is great. So all of that will automatically save as you amend it. And that then becomes the standard for all of the meetings that you start. So every single meeting that I've got scheduled here will all have the same functionality. Let's head back over to our PowerPoint. Here we go. In the shared function that we talked about yesterday in the first session, we talked about this share screen button. And we talked about selecting this first one. Most people will be running one screen rather than two, but you can select which screen you want to share. You also get this joyful button, which is the whiteboard. I'm going to share my whiteboard with you now. So you'll be able to see my screen, which should just be one large blank screen. And I can draw on this. I'm doing this with my mouse, so I'm not very dexterous. I can draw you a graph and talk about things that are happening in here. I can change the color of my pen and draw various things. I can click a text button and type in headings. I can also copy and paste from a Word document. So let me head over here and I'm in my PowerPoint at the moment. I'm copying some text and I'm just going to drop it in here. So you could have some titles queued up and you can drop them in as suits you. We have a rubber, so we can rub things out. We have an undo button, so I can undo the rubbings out. And I have a spotlight button as well, which I quite like, so you can indicate things in here. I believe I can also, bear with me, I'm just in my PowerPoint. I'm going to copy a diagram. And I'd like to paste it in here. It's not letting me do that. Earlier I had diagrams that were copying and pasting in. If your users want to annotate this, they go to the View Preview, the View Options, and click the button to annotate. And that means that you can then join in my drawing party. So if I asked you, for example, if we had a graph, oh, I'm just trying to flick to draw. If I had a graph and I said to you, I'd really like you to, on this particular diagram, I'd like you to indicate where on this chart you feel that you are. We might have something like this. Tell me where on this you feel you are in terms of happiness and well-being right now. You can actually pick up your stamps in your annotation button and you can click them, and everybody in the shared screen can see what everybody is doing, which is really helpful. It makes it a real community of it. I quite like it. I use this as if I were doing a flip chart at the front of a room in a real life scenario. So I might have on here, let me just hit the clear button, clear everything. I might have on here tasks for today. And then I would ask my room full of people, what do you want to hit today? What do we want to get through it? And as they give me suggestions, with some poor spelling, I will add them in here. So we actually get a collective of everything we want to achieve. There's also a save button at the top for me, and I would advise you to get in the habit of saving before you exit and saving before you share a different screen. So I'm going to pull you back to the PowerPoint section. We're back. So really today I wanted to go through just a couple of additions that make this particular function better, in my opinion. For things like workshops, I really find the 40 minutes constraint quite difficult. But if you are new to business, you're bootstrapping, or you're just starting out with online function, start your workshops and keep them for 30 minutes. Or if you're just starting to use this function for things like team meetings, keep them for 30 minutes. People have got a lot of things to do online at the moment, and it really is about keeping your information short and sharp and relevant, and then people can carry on with their day. So just a few things that you can be practicing on. I would advise that you get familiar with that settings button on your panel of Zoom. Change a couple of things, start a mock meeting and just see how that looks different. And remember, from the first session yesterday, we went over, as soon as you open up that meeting, first thing I want you to do is hit the participants button and the chat button and see what the different functionality is as you turn some of those things on and off. You've already set up yesterday, which is what we talked about, is auto recording. So I really advise that as soon as you start a meeting, it sets to record. Ideally, you can pause that until you're ready to start your full spiel, so you don't get a lot of lag in your recording at the beginning. But then, yeah, just hit resume when you're ready to go. Either way, having it record automatically reduces the chances that you're going to forget to record the session. Have a look at designing your workshops in a way that makes them interactive. What questions can you ask the delegates that get them using those interaction buttons, whether it's the thumbs up or whether it's using the yes, no buttons? Anything that gets them involved. You can get them having a show of hands, really get them engaged in the session, so it's not just you broadcasting. Thank you for the thumbs up that I can see. Have a go at mocking up a live session. I've recommended to a couple of people already, have a drinks party with friends or have a catch-up chat with friends and family, but do it on Zoom and use them as your guinea pigs and really get into practicing turning other people's mute on and off, because it's the thing that I probably spend most of the time doing, is either muting people that unmuted themselves or somebody's got a question and can't find the unmute button. So get into the practice of muting and unmuting. If you can get yourself a mouse, it makes you much more dexterous in the platform. I get into some practice of doing that, so you know where the functionality is should you ever need it. And now that you've got your Zoom meetings recorded, what do you do next with them? Let's start having to think about how you can repurpose this. So you could load them onto a YouTube channel and just leave them as free content. I would recommend loading them onto a cloud-based storage system anyway. I load mine onto YouTube, and I marked them as unvisible, unsearchable, so that you can't see them unless you've got the link to them. So that means any of you that have signed up to these sessions have access to them whenever you want, for as long as you want, but people that search for my name and my company won't find the series. That just protects me and my brand a little bit. Equally, if you're running team sessions, you might not want to have them everywhere, but you might want to upload them to a cloud-based storage. It saves somebody having to write minutes of the meeting. It's all recorded. It's all there for everyone to see. Now, we talked a little bit about how to manage meetings of more than 5 people. You need to get into some good admin practices. And I'm going to release to you very shortly in advance. Actually, I said I'd release it after Thursday's session, but I'll send it over to you now. I have a slide that you can put at the beginning of your sessions that just gives people joining an idea of the buttons that they're seeing and what they do. That gets us into some real good housekeeping, so people can start to learn what the functionality is without you having to explain it all. I'm also going to send over a list that you can send out to the delegates, which is a bit of how they can get the most out of the webinar. So things like making sure they've got headsets on, making sure they've got clear backgrounds, making sure that they've turned their Wi-Fi off. All of those sorts of things are really good Zoom management to get in the habit of doing. So I'll send those over to you as well. When I'm running Zoom sessions, you'll notice I ask for some interaction, either with the buttons, with people saying yes or no, and I ask for questions to go into the chat box. This is so I can keep a handle on what people are asking. And when I've got someone to help me, I can get them to pick out the theme. So if a few people have asked the same question a few times, I can just answer that question once. And it's something I really encourage you to get your delegates to do, is either raise their hand if they want to be unmuted, on using the interactive buttons. I can see you pop up as blue and a blue hand in the corner, or get them to pop those questions in the chat box. It means that you can keep your audio clean. It means that you can keep your flow nice and steady, but it also means that you can say, right, hi, let me look, hi Jane, you've asked a question there, can you expand on that a little bit for me? You can unmute them and you can go into having that one-to-one dialogue. Makes sure that everything is clean and neat and tidy, and means that your recording that you're going to repurpose, either strip the audio off for a podcast episode, download the audio and have it transcribed for a blog article, or use some of the imagery that we've got here for some of your social posts. But by having really clear and distinct lines about how you want people to respond, how you want people to ask questions, means that that is as clean as possible. You don't have to do lots of editing to it. And gets into really good habits around not talking over each other, and really making sure your sessions are smooth. So that is it from me for the moment. Our next session is actually going to be on Thursday the 3rd. No, Thursday the 2nd. Today is the 1st. Oh, I'm losing track of my days. Tomorrow, Thursday the 2nd, I will see you back here. We're going to be going over the advanced functions, breakout rooms, and what you can do inside of those breakout rooms, including additional whiteboard functions. And we'll be going over things like polling and how to ask polls in your webinars and your online chats. Hope that helps. If you've got any questions at all, my email address is there on the slide, lorna@myohmyevents.com. Feel free to ping me over any questions, and I'll hopefully get this recording to you later this evening with the Zoom tutorial number 1. Have a great day, and I will see you all soon. Take care.